On March 20th, 2025, a team of engineers at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory sat around their screens and waited. They had sent a sequence of commands to a spacecraft the day before. Not a spacecraft in orbit, not a probe near Mars or Jupiter, a spacecraft traveling through interstellar space more than 15 billion miles from Earth, moving away from us at 35,000 miles per hour. The commands had taken over 23 hours just to arrive. Now, watching the data return, also taking 23 hours, the engineers saw something they genuinely did not expect. The temperature of a set of thrusters considered dead since 2004 began to rise. Within 20 minutes, the numbers were climbing. Thrusters that had been written off as unusable for 21 years were alive again. The propulsion team lead, Todd Barber, said something that has stuck with everyone who heard it. These thrusters were considered dead, and that was a legitimate conclusion. Then he added that it was yet another miracle save for Voyager. This is the story of what NASA was not ready for. Not just one fix on one day, but the full, unbelievable arc of what Voyager 1 has been going through over the past year and a half, and why the people who work on this mission look at this spacecraft the way you look at something that refuses to die. Before we go further, if stories like this genuinely interest you, take a moment to subscribe, because this channel exists to dig into exactly these kinds of discoveries, and there is much more coming. Voyager 1 launched on September 5th, 1977, designed for a 5-year mission to photograph Jupiter and Saturn. That mission succeeded beyond every expectation, and then the spacecraft simply kept going. It kept going for another decade, then another, then another. In 2012, it crossed the heliopause, the boundary where the sun's influence ends and interstellar space begins, becoming the first human-made object to enter the space between the stars. It kept going after that too. As of right now, it sits more than 15 billion miles from Earth, and its signal, traveling at the speed of light, takes over 23 hours to reach us. Everything you are about to hear happened to a spacecraft running on 1970s technology. Alone in the dark, billions of miles from anyone who could help it. Separated from home by a delay that makes every crisis agonizingly slow to address. The first crisis of 2025 was the thruster problem, and understanding it requires understanding what these thrusters actually do. Voyager 1 has a set of thrusters responsible for roll control, keeping the spacecraft rotated correctly so its antenna stays pointed at Earth. Without accurate roll control, the antenna drifts, the signal weakens, and communication eventually becomes impossible. The primary roll thrusters had been dead since 2004, a power issue in their internal heaters rendering them inoperable, forcing engineers to rely solely on a backup set for over 2 decades. By early 2025, those backups had developed their own problem, residue building up inside their fuel tubes, the kind of buildup that eventually clogs a thruster completely. Engineers estimated the backups could fail as early as fall 2025. And if they failed with the primary thrusters still dead, Voyager 1 would have no way to maintain its orientation. The antenna would drift off Earth. The signal would be lost. The mission would effectively be over. So, the team at JPL spent months digging back through decades-old engineering documentation, wiring diagrams, and telemetry archives from the 1970s and 1980s, trying to understand exactly why the primary thrusters had failed in 2004. One engineer had an idea. What if the heaters had never actually been damaged at all? What if a glitch in the power distribution circuitry had simply flipped an internal switch to the wrong position, cutting electricity to the heaters without physically harming them? If true, a carefully crafted command sequence might flip that switch back and bring the thrusters to life. If this is blowing your mind a little, that reaction is exactly right, because scientists reacted the same way. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. It costs nothing, and it helps this video reach more people who love these deep dives as much as you do. The theory came with a genuinely frightening risk. The thrusters had been cold for 21 years, and if the spacecraft's star tracker drifted even slightly out of alignment while the team worked on the heaters, onboard software was designed to automatically fire the roll thrusters to correct it. If those thrusters fired before the heaters had warmed sufficiently, the result could be a small explosion inside the spacecraft, and there was no way to prevent an automatic firing if the timing went wrong. The fix had to work fast enough that by the time any automatic correction triggered, the fuel lines would already be warm enough to handle it safely. There was also a hard deadline. On May 4th, 2025, the Deep Space Station 43 antenna in Canberra, Australia, the only antenna on Earth powerful enough to send commands to Voyager 1 at its current distance, was scheduled to go offline for a major upgrade lasting through February 2026. If the fix was not completed before that date, the team would have no way to attempt it again until the antenna returned, by which point the backup thrusters might already have failed. The commands left Earth on March 19th, crossed 15 billion miles of interstellar space at the speed of light, and arrived at Voyager 1 more than 23 hours later. The team then waited another 23 hours for a response. Nearly 2 full days of silence. And then the data arrived. The temperature of the primary roll thruster heaters was rising. Within 20 minutes of the commands executing, the spike confirmed success. Thrusters dead since 2004 had been revived from 15 billion miles away. 6 weeks later, right on schedule, the Canberra antenna went offline and Voyager 1 entered its long communications pause with the backup thruster crisis solved and the primary thrusters available as a fallback. If you are new to this channel, we cover exactly this kind of story every single week. Real missions, real data, and the people working to keep them alive. From black hole discoveries to James Webb's latest findings. Subscribe now so you do not miss what comes next. That was the first thing NASA was not ready for. An engineering problem solved against the clock from interstellar space using a repair nobody thought was possible. But the year was far from over. In February 2026, with the Canberra antenna back online after 9 months of upgrades, the team performed a routine maintenance maneuver, a periodic roll to recalibrate the spacecraft's magnetometer, something that has been done many times over the decades without incident. On February 27, 2026, during one of these planned rolls, something unexpected happened. Voyager 1's power levels dropped, not catastrophically, not to zero, but enough to alarm the engineers watching the telemetry. The drop was unplanned and not caused by anything the team had done. Engineers quickly realized that any further decline could trigger the spacecraft's undervoltage fault protection system, a safety mechanism designed to automatically shut down non-essential systems to protect the critical ones. They responded immediately. On April 17, 2026, NASA sent a command deactivating the low-energy charged particle experiment, an instrument that measures the structure and composition of particles in interstellar space. Mission manager Karim Badarudin said plainly that while shutting down a science instrument is not anyone's preference, it was the best option available because the power had to come from somewhere. After that shutdown, Voyager 1 was left with only 2 operating science instruments, the magnetometer and the plasma wave subsystem, down from 10 at launch. Drop a comment below and tell me, if you had to choose which instrument to sacrifice to keep a 50-year-old spacecraft alive, how would you even begin to decide? Here's what makes this story remarkable rather than simply sad. Even with instruments being shut down one by one, the data still coming back remained scientifically irreplaceable. The plasma hum, a persistent low-frequency signal of interstellar gas that Voyager 1 first detected in 2021, continues to be measured. The magnetic field readings continue mapping the structure of the ancient interstellar environment the spacecraft is moving through. With every passing week, Voyager 1 drifts deeper into territory no instrument has ever directly sampled, and it is still reporting back. Then in August 2026, engineers at JPL attempted something they had been planning for over a year, an internal procedure nicknamed the Big Bang, not the cosmological event, but a power management maneuver so delicate it required shutting down multiple systems and switching in lower power alternatives simultaneously, all at once, with no room to reverse course partway through. It was first tested on Voyager 1's twin, Voyager 2, traveling in a different direction through interstellar space roughly 13 billion miles from Earth. On August 4th, 2026, the JPL team executed the maneuver on Voyager 2, simultaneously switching off a set of powered devices and substituting lower power alternatives performing the same functions. The core challenge was thermal. The Voyager spacecraft run on radioisotope thermoelectric generators, converting heat from decaying plutonium into electricity. And that power must not only run instruments, but keep critical components warm enough to survive. If a component cools below its minimum operating temperature in interstellar space, the failure is permanent. That is why the Big Bang had to happen all at once, rather than sequentially, since sequential switching would create windows where components could cool dangerously before new systems took over. The announcement came on August 4th. The maneuver on Voyager 2 had worked. Without it, Voyager 2 would have been forced to shut down another instrument before the end of 2026. Instead, all three of its remaining instruments will keep running for at least another year, and the team immediately announced the same procedure would be attempted on Voyager 1-inch the coming months, with the possibility of even restarting the instrument shut down back in April if it succeeds. If your mind is being blown right now, make sure to share this video with someone who loves space as much as you do. It genuinely helps this channel keep making videos like this. There is no replacement for what these two spacecraft are doing. There is no other mission currently funded, launched, or on any development path that can replicate what Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 are accomplishing right now. They are the only in situ sensor network humanity has ever placed in interstellar space. And every instrument lost is a measurement gone forever. A window into the interstellar medium that closes permanently. A type of data unavailable again for decades, possibly longer. The JPL team knows this, which is exactly why they are willing to attempt a procedure like the Big Bang on a 49-year-old spacecraft running on a power supply equivalent to a dim light bulb, because the alternative is watching irreplaceable science disappear. And in the middle of all of this, something else is approaching, something no human-made object has ever achieved. On November 18th, 2026, at 2:16 inches the morning Pacific time, Voyager 1 will be exactly 1 light day from Earth, the first human-made object in history to reach that distance. 1 light day is roughly 16 billion miles. The distance light itself travels in 24 full hours. When a signal leaves Voyager 1 at that moment, it will take exactly 1 full day to reach us, and any response sent back takes another full day to arrive. If you ask Voyager 1 a question on Monday morning, you get the answer on Wednesday morning. If something goes wrong and intervention is needed, 2 full days pass before that intervention even reaches the spacecraft. The engineers managing this mission are essentially performing surgery through a 2-day phone delay on a patient flying away from them at 35,000 miles per hour, growing harder to reach with every passing hour, and they are succeeding. Quick request before we continue, if this video has taught you something new, tap that subscribe button now. It costs nothing and it directly determines whether we can keep making deep dives like this one. It is worth going deeper into what this survival story actually means for science, beyond the poetry of humanity's farthest messenger drifting through the dark. The interstellar medium, the space between the stars, remains one of the least understood environments in all of astrophysics. We can observe it remotely, measuring how light from distant stars is absorbed and scattered as it passes through, inferring density, temperature, and magnetic structure indirectly. But there is an enormous gap between remote observation and direct measurement, between seeing something from far away and actually being inside it, feeling the plasma waves and magnetic fields with instruments physically placed in the middle of it. Voyager 1 is the only thing humanity has ever placed directly inside the interstellar medium, and its data is not simply confirming what scientists already believed. In some cases, it is contradicting it. When Voyager 1 crossed the heliopause in 2012, researchers were surprised to find the magnetic field direction did not match what models predicted from remote observation. Plasma density differed from expectations. The transition from the heliosphere into interstellar space was messier and more complex than the clean boundary models had suggested. And a magnetic anomaly that began around 2020, elevated field readings persisting for years, believed by some scientists to indicate Voyager 1 has entered a pocket of ancient interstellar plasma, remains something no model predicted and nothing fully explains. Every piece of data returned by the 2 remaining instruments serves as ground truth for theories about the interstellar medium built for decades on indirect observation alone. There is also the communications picture to understand, because it shapes everything about how this mission is managed. As of now, Voyager 1 sits roughly 15.8 billion miles from Earth, with a one-way communication delay exceeding 23 hours. And that distance keeps increasing every year, meaning every signal it sends arrives weaker, and Earth's antennas have to work harder to pull it from the background noise of the universe. By November 2026, when it reaches one light day from Earth, the signal will be so faint that Canberra's antenna will essentially be operating at the limit of what current technology can physically achieve. And there is no larger antenna already built to take over. That is what gives this current moment in the Voyager story its particular urgency. Every instrument still online today matters more than it would have 5 years ago, because there are fewer years left, and every data point collected right now would not exist if the team had given up in 2023, when a separate communications crisis nearly ended the mission entirely. If this video has taught you something new today, please take a moment to subscribe, because we are going to keep following this story as it develops, and there is still so much more coming. The people who work on Voyager are racing time itself, not in a dramatic way, but in the quiet, methodical, deeply skilled way real engineers and scientists work against limits that cannot be moved, only managed. They cannot make the power last forever. They cannot make the signal stronger than physics allows. They cannot make the spacecraft younger. All they can do is be smart about what remains, and they have been extraordinarily, almost incomprehensibly smart about it. Dead thrusters revived after 21 years. Instruments sacrificed in precisely the right order to keep the most valuable data flowing. A power procedure nicknamed the Big Bang, executed simultaneously across aging systems where a single wrong move could trigger a cascading failure. Voyager 1 keeps surviving because the people who work on it refuse to give up on it, backed by decades of accumulated expertise about a spacecraft that no one else on Earth understands quite the way they do. When Todd Barber said those thrusters were considered dead and that it was a legitimate conclusion, what he meant was that the evidence said they should not work, that the rational conclusion was they were gone forever. Then one engineer asked one question, followed one thread of logic to one possible cause, and the rational conclusion turned out to be wrong. That is precisely why you keep questioning assumptions even when you think you already know the answer. Science and engineering at their very best are the same discipline. The willingness to test what you believe. The willingness to be surprised. The willingness to send a command into the darkness, wait nearly 2 full days for a response, and hold your breath until the data finally comes back. So, let us bring this together. In the span of a year and a half, Voyager 1 survived a thruster crisis that should have ended communication forever. An unexpected power drop that forced the shutdown of a working science instrument, and now stands on the verge of a Big Bang power maneuver borrowed from a successful test on its twin spacecraft, all while approaching a distance no human-made object has ever reached. None of it was expected. None of it was planned for in 1977. It is simply what happened when a spacecraft built to last 5 years turned out to be built better than anyone knew, maintained across 5 decades by people who refused to accept that it was finished. When that final signal eventually comes, when power finally drops below the minimum threshold for any instrument to function, Voyager 1 will not stop moving. It will keep flying through the interstellar medium and whatever lies beyond it, carrying its golden record and the memory of every hand that ever worked to keep it alive. Passing near a star called Gliese 445 inches, roughly 40,000 years. Long after the civilization that built it has become unrecognizable. Long after our languages and everything we built has turned to dust. But today, right now, it is still talking to us, still measuring, still surprising the very engineers who thought they understood its limits. So here's the question I want to leave you with. If the Big Bang maneuver succeeds on Voyager 1 and a shutdown instrument comes back online, what do you think this 50-year-old spacecraft will find next? Out there, past the edge of everything we have ever directly measured. Type your answer in the comments below. I read every single one, and I genuinely want to know what you think. If you enjoyed this journey through what NASA was not ready for, do 3 things before you go. Like this video so more people can find it. Share it with someone who would find this as fascinating as you did. And subscribe, so you are here for every update on Voyager's mission and every other deep space discovery still waiting to be uncovered. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.